Hey y'all, I'm nervous. My name is Emily Lowe, and our heart journey actually begins with my son, Wyatt. He was born in 2013, and before he was born, we suffered through infertility for about 3 years. And after he was born heart healthy, thank God, but after he was born, my body went into a lot of medical craziness, and I had to be put on a lot of different medications. So in February of 2015, we had decided that we wanted to talk about expanding our family. So with my history of infertility, we expected to have a long road towards getting pregnant, and one night when I was in bed, I lifted my arms to God and I prayed fervently for a child that I could raise for a disciple for God. I didn't have any idea that I was going to be praying for that. God gave me that prayer, and I laid in bed and I kept repeating over and over again, God, give me a child that I could raise up for you. God gave me that prayer. I didn't know I was going to pray it. God gave me that prayer so that he could fulfill it. And sure enough, the next month, I had a positive pregnancy test. We announced our pregnancy at my son's birthday. He was not happy about it. He let it be known, and it made for a very funny video. As soon as we found out that I was pregnant, everybody said that it was going to be a girl. Everybody knew that. And we we took my son Wyatt to the gender ultrasound, and he wore his best brother ever shirt that he got for his birthday. And the gender should have been the least of our worries, but we didn't know that at the time. This was my second pregnancy, so I knew what to expect for an ultrasound. However, we were waiting, and the technician was taking a really long time, and she was very silent all throughout our ultrasound. And finally, she asked me if we wanted to know the gender of our child. And she told us the baby was a girl. And I told Wyatt, that was sitting on Ryan's lap, that he was going to have a little sister, and her name was going to be Maggie Rose is what we call her. But we also found out that she only had 2 of the 4 chambers of her heart. So we were scheduled for a more in-depth ultrasound the next day. Our family was all waiting for us to meet with them to reveal the gender. I had bought purple and blue paint and a white shirt, and we went to my husband's grandparents' house, and Wyatt took his hands in the purple paint and he placed them on my belly to show everybody that it was a girl. And then we had to tell everybody, it's a girl, but she only has half a heart. And you could tell the change in the room of everybody that you told. It was palpable. The one thing that really upset me the most that day is that none of our family members, after we told them the news, had asked us if we decided to name her. And 2 days later, we visited Cincinnati Children's Hospital, where we learned that Maggie Rose had a congenital heart defect called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. I had never heard of the term, but I quickly became well-versed in cardiac anatomy, as I'm sure a lot of you heart parents can attest. We can speak heart language with the best of them. I spent the next 5 months reading every single article I could get my hands on about HLHS. I learned all of the Norwood cath procedures. I learned how to take care of an interstage child. I was ready to take care of a medically fragile child into our life. We joined a support group to meet heart families. We were very ready. But I did not have an easy pregnancy. Maggie did not move a lot in my womb. I'd been pregnant before. I knew all the kicks that I was supposed to feel. Something just didn't feel right. The doctors attested this to the placement of my placenta, but mother's intuition told me something otherwise. So my entire pregnancy, Maggie was in a breech or transverse position, and the doctors couldn't rotate her because of her heart condition. They didn't want to stress her out at all. And because of her not moving, I was hospitalized for the last week of my pregnancy. And I was being prepped for a cesarean section the day I turned 39 weeks, and I was being wheeled out of the room for my cesarean section into the operating room, like they were ready to go. And the surgeon had them take an ultrasound to check for placement so he could make the incision, and Maggie had flipped. It was a miracle. For 2 whole months she had been in one position, not moving, and she had flipped. And I was able to give birth naturally. My body went into labor, and 20 hours later, Maggie Rose was born on November 24th, 2015 at 11:32 in the morning. She weighed 6 pounds, 12 ounces, and was 18 inches long. But when Maggie Rose was born, she was born not alive. When the doctor lifted her into the air, she was as still as a doll. She didn't move at all. That's what she looked like, was a little baby doll, and that's what my son calls her. And luckily, because of her heart condition, there were 20 other doctors in the room that were able to take care of her. And the hardest 4 minutes of my life, just sitting there, not able to see her or hear her, and hearing things like there's no heartbeat. Was the birth eventful? It wasn't. I had only pushed 3 times for 11 minutes. And finally, I heard them say, there's a heartbeat. Thank God. Maggie got a miracle. She had to pick the life twice. So they took her off to the NICU. My husband stayed with Maggie, and what was only supposed to take 10 minutes to place IV lines into her umbilical cord took over 2 hours. 5 hours later, she was able to be transferred to Children's Hospital. My husband went with her, stayed with her the entire time at Children's Hospital. And because of me being able to give birth naturally, 24 hours to the minute that Maggie was born, I walked out of Good Samaritan Hospital on my own 2 feet because I had to be with my baby. It was obvious after Maggie was born that there was a lot more to her story that we knew prenatally. Maggie looked a lot different than newborns look. She didn't move or cry very much. And there was a line of doctors waiting for us the very first day that we were at the hospital. We found out that Maggie's brain, eyes, hearing, lungs, airway, body, and heart all did not form properly. Her congenital heart defect was changed to double outlet right ventricle, presenting a hypoplastic left heart with a ventricular septal defect, a large patent ductus arteriosus, severe tricuspid regurgitation, and domed pulmonary valve. It seems that every day brought something new, a new test, a new set of doctors, and new breathing treatment. But I was able to hold Maggie on her second day of life for 1 minute until her oxygen sat started to drop. We even watched the Thanksgiving Day parade together that morning, but we missed out on seeing Santa Claus because I fell asleep because I was so exhausted. The first days, we were trying to gather as much information about Maggie's condition as possible to present to our cardiac care team, because Maggie's surgeon flew out of the country the day that she was born. He was in Japan, and so we didn't think she was going to be able to have her surgery that she needed right away. So we had a week until her surgery case was to be discussed. Maggie, like I said, was very still. She didn't move very much, and that actually turned out to be a good thing because she didn't have to be sedated for things like her MRI. Because she was actually deaf, she didn't hear any of the machines, so it didn't stress her body out at all. But we found out from the MRI that she had suffered brain damage from the time that she was not alive at birth, and part of her brain had died. And part of her brain also did not develop, including the parts that allowed her to sit up, move her midline, and her pituitary glands that control her growth. My poor child, who was born into the world, couldn't hear or see, couldn't breathe on her own, and her heart kept stopping and jumping rhythm. I pray that she felt peace when she felt my presence. Maggie seemed to be doing better, though, because she started to move her feet in my reaction to my touch, and she started to raise her arms off the bed. Oddly, I never envisioned Maggie outside the hospital. That's not to say that I didn't have hope. It just didn't occur to me. We were living minute by minute at that time. The only thing I had wanted Maggie to be able to do was to reach for me. When my son Wyatt was 5 days old, he had reached and touched my face when I was feeding him. And from the time that Maggie was born, I kept thinking, when is Maggie going to be able to reach out and touch me? And when Maggie was 6 days old, she reached her arm off of her hospital bed, and she reached up because I was holding her left hand, and she grabbed onto my finger, and she slid her hand up onto my finger, and she repeated it for my husband. And she only did it those 2 times, because then we could try to get her to do it on video, and of course she didn't after that. My daughter did the only thing that I wanted her to be able to do, and that was to give us a sign that she knew that her mother and father were there. While we were at dinner that night, Maggie had a severe bradycardia event, and her oxygen sats dropped into the 30s. Our doctor made the decision to intubate her before she got into an emergency position. It was too late. When the doctor removed her BiPAP mask, she let out her one and only cry of her life before she was intubated. The next day, Maggie was very calm and still all day long. That evening, she was supposed to go to the OR to see the pulmonary team so they could check out her lower airways, so they had that information for the cardiac team for her surgery. As Maggie was being wheeled out of the room, the doctor canceled all of her procedures. Maggie's lactic acid levels had climbed to 4.0, meaning her body was in distress. He said that she could have the PIC team come and replace her UVC and UAC lines. So at 6 p.m., Maggie received her very first dose of morphine. My husband and I went to dinner in the family room. I called my dad, and I told him that I had a feeling that Maggie would be passing on her own during the night. I could hear his voice crack. He told me that as she did, she would have Ryan and I at her side to hold her hands. I called an hour lady down to sleep and arranged for the photographer to come out and take her photos in the morning. When we went back to Maggie's room, the PIC team had been unsuccessful at placing her IV lines because her veins were too small. Maggie no longer had central IV access. At 8 p.m., her lactic acid levels were above a 5. I turned to the attending physician and asked her if my baby was in heart failure, and he told me yes, she was. He told me that there was more that they could do for her medically, so my husband asked if they could get her through the night so we could talk to the doctors in the morning and see what surgery that they were offering, but we had already been prepared for the recommendation for comfort care. I pulled a chair up to Maggie's side and I did not move. For hours, nurses moved all around me, placing my daughter on life support, but I never let go of my daughter's hand. They put Maggie on a lot of medicine and made the ventilator breathe for her, so that all Maggie's body had to do was pump her heart, which it was struggling to do. That entire day, I've been calling her Precious Angel, and each time I did it, I stopped myself and I asked myself, why am I saying this? An angel lives in heaven, not on earth. And I knew in truth that it was God giving me a sign of the things to come. Rounds always started at 9, and we were at the beginning of the pod, so they were always first. And we were waiting, and our family was waiting in the family room, but the care team saved our room for last and didn't come until after 10. Dr. Cooper told us that it was the unanimous recommendation of the Heart Institute not to offer surgery for Maggie. They said it was still our decision. They could do an operation, but that her heart would not be able to sustain itself. Since the left side of her heart was missing, her right side would have to do all of the work. Maggie's tricuspid valve was very leaky, and because of her domed pulmonary valve, there was nowhere for the blood to escape. The only way that blood was flowing through Maggie's heart was through the PDA and the VSD, which would have to be closed during surgery. She was already in severe heart failure, and her heart was too complex to be fixed by surgery. Maggie would never be eligible for heart transplant because of her genetics. I laid my head against the glass door, and I told them that we didn't want her to be in any pain. On December 2nd, 2015, Maggie spent the day with her family. Maggie's grandma, Papa, Mama, Gigi, and Papa, uncles Chad, Kyle, and Joe, Aunt Amber, and our pastor Bill Clark all came to see Maggie and give her kisses. My son Wyatt got to give Maggie a bath, and that was the first thing that he told me that he wanted to do when I was pregnant, was he wanted to put his baby doll in the water and wash her. So he helped us do that. We made footprint ornaments for Ned and Maggie's foot for all of our family, and we read on the night we were born together as a family. Then Ryan and I were able to dress Maggie in her very first outfit. As I was getting Maggie dressed, even though she was sedated and paralyzed, Maggie opened her eyes and she looked at me. I dropped my head to her forehead and I told her over and over again that Mommy would see it for her. Brother Bill prayed over Maggie, and I remember him saying, Father, we commit Maggie to you. At 2:18 p.m., Maggie's doctor placed her in my arms and I began to sing to her. I can only imagine what it will feel like when I walk by your side, surrounded by your glory. What will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. At 2:30 p.m., the doctor raised Maggie's yellow stethoscope to her chest as I sang Silent Night. Sleep in heavenly peace. were the words that I said as my daughter took her last breath in my arms. My daughter died of a broken heart. We knew that we made the right choice for Maggie by removing life support because we didn't want to prolong her suffering. God's plan for Maggie had been fulfilled. Never before had I witnessed with such magnitude God's power as I did with Maggie. Maggie reached 100, if not 1,000 people without ever leaving her hospital bed. Maggie's heart, mind, and body was completely broken, but when you looked at her, you did not see brokenness. You saw her love, you saw hope, you saw bravery, and you saw God's grace. There were people around the country praying every single day for Maggie. And I truly believe that most of the people that were praying for her would not have been reaching out towards God in those moments if it were not for my daughter. Some people see the tragedy of losing a child and they question if God exists. I say, how can you see Maggie and believe that God doesn't exist? Maggie had a 3q duplication, which means genetically she had a lot of extra chromosomal information, and really she shouldn't have even made it to birth. But this little child who was so broken fought and lived for 8 days. She was born not alive and brought back to life. She fought for every breath for 701,880 seconds. Even when she was sedated and paralyzed, she opened her eyes and looked at me 15 minutes before she passed away. Through God's grace, he took this broken child into his arms and took her home and made her whole. Maggie fulfilled God's plan for her to bring all those around her closer to him. I prayed for God to give me a child that I could raise up for him. Maggie and Wyatt are not only my children, but they are God's children also. I am their mother and their keeper. It is my job to keep them safe until it is their time to rejoin God in heaven. Maggie's time came sooner than I wanted. But Maggie was and still is a perfect disciple for God because she is a beacon of his never-ending love and the promise we have of eternal life. People still ask what I need or want them to do for our family, and I still don't know the answer to this. I have families around me that are still suffering loss, and it's hard to know what to do or say for them. The further that I get from Maggie's death, the more alone that I feel. I actually think a lot of CHD families feel this way, whether they have suffered loss or not, is not the same once you have received a CHD diagnosis. I would say be genuine. I have had so many people say, call me if you need anything. But you know the people who say this when it's the proper thing to say, and those who say it when they truly mean it. And as a grieving mom, you're not going to be the one to try and intrude on someone. If someone is recently diagnosed, lend an ear, call to check up on them, or bring them dinner. If a mom has lost a child with CHD, don't be afraid to mention their child. You're not going to hurt them by bringing them around. I said that you feel so alone because so many people around you are silent. No one knows what to say, so they don't say anything. By mentioning their child, you aren't reminding them that they are gone. They know that. You're reminding them that you remembered that they were here. CHD is a battle that never ends. I just saw a shirt that reads, "You became my angel, so I became your warrior." We all need support, and many days there is just someone to talk to and remember with. I know the only way I've made it this far is with God and my friends. I don't know how many times I've repeated Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, over and over again. When I'm going through something tough, I will literally walk back and forth like I'm doing right now, and repeat it to myself. Because we don't do this heart journey on our own. When I was in the hospital with Maggie, I could feel the love and prayers surrounding us. I could feel Jesus at Maggie's side. I could feel God's grace covering Maggie in her last day. I don't feel that extreme presence anymore, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. We are still surrounded in love. Jesus' death still paid the price for our sins, and God's grace still covers us. I will leave you with the lyrics from a song that rang through to my soul. After Maggie passed, I found it really hard to pray about myself, but I was still able to pray for the other people around me. I described it as closing my heart, so that way I didn't feel any more pain. And I figured if I didn't feel anything, that was better than feeling pain. My favorite musician, Chris August, sings a song called I Believe. When I heard him sing it live, I felt God wrap around me and break through my closed heart. You might see a miracle and give praises to the Lord. Don't let a touch from heaven be the thing you're waiting for. Blessed are those who don't see but still believe. Do you believe? I believe that there is something more that I can see. I believe that the arms of Jesus are holding on to me. Sometimes I won't feel it, but that won't change a thing, because it's by faith that I believe. Because God can handle anything that we throw at him. He's going to give you some really big things in this life, especially as CHD family. We are undoubtedly going to screw up at times, and he knows that. When life gets hard, and I mean really, really hard, keep talking to him. Even when you're angry, you're allowed to be angry at him. He can handle it. Ask him why me, but keep talking and keep listening. God uses the people around you to speak into your life and bring you through this storm. The people who have been closest to me throughout Maggie's life and death, I didn't even know a year ago. God will bring you the answers to the troubles that he gives you. If Maggie's life and death have taught me one thing, it is to have faith. God's got Maggie, and God's got me, and God's got you. So have faith. Thank you.